It's Friday the 13th during spooky season, which means it's time for another spooky update on the Canadian housing market. First up, Mississauga's City Council failed to pass a housing density proposal in a deadlocked 5-5 vote. The vote would have allowed fourplexes throughout the city, as well as four-story homes near rapid transit stations. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie called the outcome disappointing and said she hopes councillors will change their minds in the near future. However, that might seem a little more meaningful if she had voted in favour of the proposal instead of taking a leave of absence less than a week before the vote in order to run for leadership of the Ontario Liberal Party. Whatever. Next, a story for the supply and demand crowd. Real estate stats are coming in for September, and new listings are rapidly rising in many of Canada's major markets at the same time that sales are dropping. In the GTA, the MLS Home Price Index fell another 1.25% month over month, as new listings rose 44% from September of last year, with sales falling 7% over the same period. That may not seem like a big drop, but 2022 was also a relatively weak year for September, and this year's sales are even lower. This was actually the lowest number of sales in the GTA for September going back to 1999, when the population was much lower. In fact, for detached homes, it was the worst September ever in the history of Trev's MarketWatch statistics going back to 1996. The sales to new listings ratio, often used as a measure of market sentiment, fell to 28.6%, a 14-year low, meaning that there were about 3.5 new listings for every sale. Some people, such as Hanif over at Wawa, have declared that Toronto has now moved into a buyer's market, but it could also be argued that we're in more of a frozen market. While the large increase in new listings indicate that a lot more people want to sell, the low number of sales indicate that there's a disagreement on price. Buyers are not willing to pay what sellers are willing to accept for their property. For a true buyer's market, we need to see prices coming down to the point that people are actually willing to pay them. That said, there's no guarantee that this will result in prices dropping. The directions that prices go will be determined by which side has the greater need, and there's really no pressing need to sell unless you're financially stressed and struggling to pay your bills. In other news, according to a report by the National Payroll Institute, a record number of Canadians are financially stressed and struggling to pay their bills. According to the survey, 37% of Canadians fall into the financially stressed category, the highest in the 15-year history of the survey. Of those, 67% said they were living paycheck to paycheck, with another 50% saying they felt overwhelmed by debt. This has resulted in more Canadians using debt to finance essentials like food and shelter, driving our overall consumer debt to $2.4 trillion, including a record high of $107.4 billion in credit card debt. Obviously, this is not sustainable, but it sounds like a lot of people are just trying to get by however they can and hoping that things turn around soon. To finish off with a less depressing story, Edmonton has become the first city in Canada to create a tax subclass for derelict properties, which will triple the property tax on derelict and abandoned properties in mature areas of the city, currently considered to be about 300 properties. These kinds of vacant properties are often held by land speculators and end up costing cities considerably more money in policing, inspections, and emergency services like the fire department. Edmonton is basically telling the owners to either do something useful with the land or sell it. If you want to know more, Edmonton City Councillor Ashley Salvador made a very good TikTok video that goes into more detail on this subject. That's all for today, so thanks for watching and have a spooky weekend!